Hiya. So I just wanted to post a video because May is International PKU Awareness Month, and not a lot of people know what PKU is unless they have it themselves or they know someone else who does. PKU, or I'm going to use the fancy word here, otherwise known as phenylketonuria, is a rare metabolic disorder and it's diagnosed through a newborn blood spot screening around 5 days old. Only 1 in 10,000 babies in the UK are born with this condition, so it is very rare. So you're probably thinking, what is PKU? It doesn't affect me. It may not be important to you, but it is important to me because I happen to have that condition, and it's important for me to raise awareness about it because there's so much research and awareness on things like diabetes and such. Every person I meet new in my life, and I'll go for a meal with them and they're like, oh, we're at a steakhouse, why are you just having chips? I have to then go into this explanation as to my condition and what I have. And it makes you a little self-conscious, it does. So the condition itself is caused by a genetic mutation that is passed on by parents who are carriers of the condition. The child needs to receive 2 copies of this gene in order to inherit PKU. Those that only receive 1 gene will essentially then become a carrier of the condition. As far as I'm aware, it is extremely rare for those with PKU to then have a PKU child. It's rare but not unheard of. So what it is, our bodies break down protein with food into amino acids, which are obviously the building blocks of protein. Those born with PKU are missing a specific enzyme in, I believe it's the liver, which means that they are unable to break down the amino acid called phenylalanine. This then builds up in their blood and brain and can lead to brain damage if left untreated. So it doesn't usually present any symptoms if treated, or if the treatment started early. However, if it's left untreated, it can cause damage to the brain and nervous system and other symptoms such as behavioural difficulties, frequent temper tantrums, episodes of self-harm, etc. Fairer skin, hair and eye colour. I never knew this until I sort of researched into it. But everyone always comments on how pale I am and my blue eyes, and yeah, I guess that's because of my PKU. What it is the phenylalanine is one of the main components that produces melanin, which is responsible for the pigmentation of those features within your body. So that's why people with PKU obviously have fairer features. Eczema, I never knew that. I've got eczema on my arms, never knew that was a PKU thing. Repeatedly being sick, obviously it can cause a very low immune system, so you pick up everything that's going really. Jerking movements in the limbs, sort of physical tremors. I know when I wasn't taking my medication properly for a long time, I did start to develop some physical tremors in my hands, mainly in my neck, like my head would just snap suddenly. Now that I'm obviously doing everything that I'm told, that has subsided. It can also cause epilepsy, so there you go. So there's currently no cure for PKU. It is a lifelong condition. However, health professionals have been able to identify and treat the condition since the 1960s. Treatment has improved vastly over the years, especially since I was a child. There are a lot more options now. All those with the condition must be restricted to a lifelong low protein diet. So it can vary between individuals. Some have a lower tolerance for phenylalanine. Others can have a higher tolerance. So what I have is called classic PKU. There are others who can obviously tolerate more phenylalanine in their diet. I personally have been restricted to 5.5 grams of protein a day throughout the majority of my lifetime. those phenylalanine levels are monitored by sending in regular blood spots. I will say, since I have my diet in order at the moment, taking all my medication, measuring my food, I am now allowed 6 to 7 grams a day, which I know normal people are sitting there thinking that is not a lot, but to me, that is a lot of protein for me to play with. Sometimes I struggle to fill it, and insane. So obviously we're unable to eat foods that are high in protein, such as meat, fish, eggs, dairy, nuts, soya, tofu, corn even, yeah. Bread and flour-based products. So there are some foods that contain protein that are allowed. So they have some protein in, but you do have to measure that. And this is where our protein allowance comes in for the day, which we call exchanges. So those could be things such as potatoes, some fruit and vegetables. So you've got peas, asparagus, broccoli, cauliflower. They all have protein in. There are also foods considered to contain very little protein, so they can be eaten without weighing the food. So any food that has less than 0.5 grams of protein, we can eat as much as we want. A lot of food that we do eat needs to be ordered via prescription. So I end up ordering a lot of mine through a service called Dial a Chemist. So, I've got prescription foods such as low protein bread, rice, pasta, milk, biscuits, flour, pizza bases, pancake mix, cake mix. I could go on. I really could. So I actually have done a blog about this that I'm going to post somewhere online, see if I can get it published as well, with obviously illustrations of the foods, and it's got like a traffic light system. So the red is stop, these are too high in protein, you cannot have any of these. Amber is these have a little protein, but you need to be cautious and measure them. And green is you can have as many as you want. And those particular illustrations that I found can be sourced on the NSPKU website, which is the National Society for Phenylketonuria. Scroll down my document. So my own personal experience with PKU has been a bit difficult. So as a teenager and a young adult, I started to wish that I could just be normal, like everyone else, as you do, because at that age, you're wanting to fit in with everyone else. And when you have something huge that makes you different, you just want that to go away. So at that age, they do tend to change your medication just to try and find the right formula for you and your lifestyle. It is rather difficult to take because it's in the form of a drink. Mine I take several times a day. It's called PKU Air. It's a thick drink and it's got a very powdery texture. It's like a little powder and it's mixed with a kind of flavoured syrup. Honestly, it makes me feel sick when I get to the bottom of that medication. But, I need to take it. I know there are some thinking, why can't you take a tablet for it? If I was going to take tablets for this, I would need to take 92 tablets a day. I'm not great in taking tablets, so that is not going to happen. And it is ridiculous, to be honest. All of the advances in medicine, and you would think they would find a way to lower how many tablets that you need to take a day for PKU. Even if it was, 30, I could deal with that. 12, So, at that point in my life, I stopped taking my medication. I used to say, I'd forgot it or life got in the way, that kind of thing. But in reality, I personally think I was just burying my head in the sand and just hoping it would go away. However, at this point in my life, obviously I'm firmly back on my medication, monitoring my condition, just sort of with a newfound determination, really. I did start keeping a food diary to weigh and monitor my food intake and mark off all of my medication. I did that for maybe a year, less than that, maybe just under a year. And I was actually on the sick because I had appendicitis and needed surgery, and I ran out of the pages of my food diary. So I don't have a printer, and normally I would get my dad to print them off, but I just thought, I'll see how I go. So that food diary helped me get into the routine, and now I take it religiously without the need of the food diary and monitor my food without needing it. So that is good. Obviously, it's gotten me into the swing of things, but I don't need it anymore. I can do it on my own. So I'm currently on 4 supplements today, which is that PKU Air that I mentioned, consumed in drink form. Obviously, it stinks. It really does. It's not pleasant to taste, and it's not a pleasant smell. But my health is definitely better than it ever has been. During my time off my medication, I have ended up developing a lot of different conditions because of that. Because although I wasn't taking my medication, I was still sticking to a low protein diet, which my doctors told me it would have been better if I came off diet altogether, but I didn't. So I have ended up with vitamin B12 deficiency, to which I need to get injections every 12 weeks, I think it is, every 3 months. I haven't actually had one for a while because when I got my bloods done, when I was trying to find out what was wrong with me, and it turned out to be appendicitis, my B12 levels were actually quite high. So we've kind of put it to the side at the moment. I had some bloods done yesterday at the hospital, so we'll see what that's like. Might need to have another injection now. I have vitamin D and calcium deficiency, as well as osteoporosis. It is worst in my hips. That is just great. Finding out at 25 that you've been diagnosed with osteoporosis. You don't often hear of that in someone so young. Those issues are too late for me to fix for myself, and I'm likely going to be punished for it later in life. However, I want to use my experience with my condition to help raise awareness for PKU and support those who are currently struggling with the condition, so that they don't make the same mistakes that I did. And personally, I have 2 family members who also have PKU, cousins. So anything I can do to help raise awareness to make better treatments and food options for them is a plus. So we have to be very careful, those with PKU wanting to start a family. It has to be planned to ensure, obviously, the best possible outcome for both mother and child. When pregnant, the amino acid phenylalanine crosses from the blood of the mother to the baby via the placenta, and the baby is exposed to 2 to 3 times higher phenylalanine than in the blood of the mother. So for women with PKU, it means that the baby can be exposed to very high levels of phenylalanine, and if they are not following this restricted diet for pregnancy leading up to that, it can affect the development of the unborn baby. It can cause miscarriage. The damage from those high phenylalanine levels is permanent, and it can cause harm to the baby's brain development, leading to learning difficulties. I think it's called microphthalmia, I'm not entirely certain, which is a small head, heart defects, a low birth weight, other sort of mental and physical handicaps, and that's known as maternal PKU syndrome. Obviously, wanting to have a child, you have to plan it. If you do get pregnant by accident and your levels are high, they will immediately tell you to stop having protein altogether. You will go on 0 grams of protein per day, up your medication to get those levels down. in a normal adult, the levels should be roughly between 500 and 600. I believe the figure is umol, I think it is. I'm not entirely certain I'm pronouncing that correct. In order to safely get pregnant, a woman with PKU must get their levels between 120 and 360. This obviously only applies to women with PKU wanting to have children. I do believe men with PKU don't have to do any sort of preparation like that, but obviously because the mother and the child share obviously blood through the placenta to provide nutrients to the unborn child, that is obviously something that is needed to do for women. I will say, just to end things, there is a documentary about PKU that can be found on YouTube called The Forgotten Children, which is a demonstration of what can happen in the worst case scenario if PKU is left untreated. I must obviously just trigger warn some people who choose to watch the documentary. It is very upsetting. My parents always used to threaten me that they would make me watch it when I was a child, and I wasn't taking my medication or anything like that. And I, out of curiosity, doing this blog that I've done, wanted to look into it. Obviously, I want to know what I'm recommending people to look at for the worst case scenario. And by the time, I was crying in parts of the video, but when it finished, it ripped my heart out and I was sobbing. It's very emotional, but yes, so please obviously give the video a nice like, share it with people, spread the word. Obviously we want to raise awareness for PKU. It may not be anything to you, but to someone like me, it is our entire life. And I just want those who come afterwards to have better treatments and better options to eat, better everything, really. But yeah, thank you for listening to my ramble. Please share.